I was lying in bed, scrolling on my phone with my pregnant belly heavy in front of me, when a local news alert popped up. Wife killed in suburban murder case. Husband stabbed her to death after she refused intimacy during pregnancy. I clicked it open, only to realize the article was dated for tomorrow. And the killer's name? My husband's. At first I thought it was some sick prank or a glitch on the site. But then I saw the photo attached to the piece. Our wedding picture. My face had been completely blurred out. My heart seized. The bedroom door creaked open. My husband stood there, licking his lips, his smile so chilling it made my blood run cold. Honey, I want you tonight. Julian, I'm not feeling well. The baby's been restless. My voice trembled. My mind replayed the news alert I'd just seen. When I said that, Julian Lawson's smile fell away, and impatience hardened his tone. Again with not feeling well. What are you crying over this time? I froze. Julian had never spoken to me like that. He'd never raised his voice before. I opened my mouth to protest, but he lunged forward and gripped my wrist hard. Are you seeing someone else? Is that why you keep finding excuses so I can't touch you? A cold breath of panic hit me. A creeping dread rose inside me. Could that news story actually be real? I tried to pull away and climb out of bed, but he was frighteningly strong. He yanked me back and forced me down. A sharp ache shot through my belly. His gaze swept the room and landed on the kitchen knife on the nightstand, the one I used to peel apples. He picked it up. The metal felt cold as he brought it close to my neck. If you're that unwilling, he murmured, his voice low and distorted, I'll send you and your bastard on your way. My chest tightened with terror. His face twisted into something I didn't recognize as someone I'd once loved. The room spun, my vision tunneled, and the world tilted into darkness. I jerked awake, sitting bolt upright, gasping. I looked down. My body was unhurt. My phone screen still glowed beside me. The clock showed I'd jumped back 10 minutes. The same news alert had just popped up again. The bedroom door clicked and opened. The same familiar face stepped in and repeated the phrase that had chilled me to the bone. Honey, I want you tonight. This time, I didn't meet force with force. I steadied myself, pulled up a smile, and softened my voice. Darling, the baby's been so fussy today. I'm exhausted. Maybe another night. I thought that gentle dodge would buy me time. His impatience flared faster than before. That line again. Elena, do you think I'm stupid? He closed the distance between us. There was something darker in his eyes this time, something possessive and wrong. Elena, do you not love me anymore? Before I could answer, he lunged at me like a furious animal. But I was ready. I rolled to the other side of the bed, and he missed. Flushed with anger, he snatched up the knife. I thought it was over. As he raised the blade, my eyes caught the back of his hand. There, near the base of his thumb, was a pale brown birthmark. My pupils contracted. Julian didn't have a birthmark there. The one with that mark was his twin brother, Jaden. Julian and Jaden were identical in looks, but nothing alike in temperament. Julian had always been gentle. Jaden was brooding and withdrawn, someone our in-laws tried to keep apart from his twin because they were superstitious, believing twins could harm each other. Jaden had been sent to the countryside to be raised by elders and only came home when he went to college. He had never been close to us, and his relationship with Julian was distant at best. Why would Jaden pretend to be Julian and come here to kill me? Where was the real Julian? 1,000 terrifying thoughts flashed through my head. Survival instinct surged, and I struggled to get up again. This time, he didn't give me a chance to speak. He moved with a familiar, precise motion, and a sharp, overwhelming pain crashed through me. My breath caught, and then everything went dark again. When I opened my eyes for the third time, I sprang up and ran to the door, slamming the bedroom lock tight. Almost at the same moment, someone turned the handle. Outside, my phone lit up. The nightmare news alert appeared on schedule. Honey, open the door. I pressed my back to the wood, my heart banging in my ribs. My hands shook as I dialed Julian. After a few rings, he answered. Elena? Julian's voice came through, familiar and tired, and I felt the dam inside me break. Tears poured down my face. Darling? Sorry, honey. An emergency came up at work. I'll probably have to stay late. Go to bed early. Don't wait up. My heart sank to the floor. It was Jaden at the door. The pounding grew harder, more frantic. Elena, open up. Why did you lock the door? He shouted. I jabbed the phone close to my mouth and replied, Julian, whatever you hear, don't come home. Call the police. Call right now. I hung up, took a deep breath, and forced myself to shout back at the door with everything I had. Jaden. The hammering stopped. 1 second. 2 seconds. Then the assault resumed, wilder, more violent. How did you know? He asked through the door. No sooner had he spoken than the wood split with a massive crack. He grabbed an axe in the hall and was chopping at the door. Splinters flew. Through the new gap came Jaden's cold, amused laugh. Elena. Now that you know, I won't pretend anymore. Tonight you have to die. For the 4th time, I woke up reborn, lying in bed, my body ice cold. There were fewer than 5 minutes before Jaden would push through again. I forced myself to stay calm and think. I needed something to defend myself. Fighting him for the knife would leave me at a disadvantage. He was stronger. My eyes swept the room and landed on the vanity. In the drawer sat a can of pepper spray. I'd bought it a little while ago because I'd been scared walking home alone at night. Purely for self-defense. I sprang up and slid the spray under the comforter where I could grab it quickly. When I was done, I didn't lock the door. Instead, I walked over and eased it open just a crack. A few minutes later, Jaden came in. I didn't wait for him to speak. I threw back a corner of the blanket and smiled at him like a woman waiting in bed. Honey, you're home. I've been waiting for you, I said, my voice soft. He froze. He stood there as if he couldn't quite understand. I sat up, letting a strap of my nightgown slip off my shoulder, and curled a finger at him. What are you waiting for? Come on over. I tried to sound inviting. The wary look in his eyes slowly faded and was replaced by something smug. He thought he had me. When he let his guard down and leaned over me, I snatched the pepper spray from beneath the blanket and blasted it into his face. Ah! His scream tore through the house as he clutched his face and rolled across the bed. Seizing the chance, I scrambled off the mattress and bolted for the door. Living room. Foyer. Front door. I could be out. I grabbed the doorknob and twisted it. The door didn't budge. I looked down. A big, shiny deadbolt hung across it. Behind me, Jaden's screams faded into heavy, staggering footsteps closing in. Hey! Elena! You really gave me a nice surprise, he croaked. I froze. Then I turned my head stiffly. Jaden clutched his watering eyes with one hand while bracing himself against the wall with the other, swaying unsteadily. His face was flushed and twisted in pain. Go on. Run. Why'd you stop? His voice was hoarse as he advanced step by step. Did you really think a little toy like that could keep me back? I stared at the lock and felt my heart sink a little further. Jaden, why are you doing this? Julian is your brother. I'm your sister-in-law, I said, trying to stall, my mind racing to find a way out. Brother? Jaden laughed until he doubled over. When did he ever treat me like one? Growing up, all the good things were his. Our parents' love, the name-brand schools, everything. And now even a beautiful wife like you belongs to him. His voice snapped. His face twisted. What gives him the right? What am I missing, that he has it all? So you decided to kill me? I shouted. You think murdering me will get you those things? You're right. Killing you won't give me those things, Jaden said, a cruel edge in his smile. But he'll lose everything. He'll be smeared as a wife killer, ruined, left with nothing. And I'll take his life and enjoy what's left of it. Sudden clarity hit me. This wasn't mere revenge. He wanted to replace Julian, destroy him, then live as him. You're a lunatic, I spat. You think I'm crazy? You'll be crazy with me soon enough, he said, then lunged. I screamed and dodged, circling the living room couch to keep some distance. But at 9 months pregnant, I had no stamina. He was stronger. He cornered me against the sliding glass doors until there was nowhere left to back up. He closed in, and the familiar knife appeared in his hand. The same knife, Elena. Stop fighting it. Just be good and take the final road. I stared at him, and strangely, my mind sharpened at that moment. I could not die. Not like this, not shrouded in this confusion. Wait, I yelled. Do you really think killing me will make it easy for you to take his place? Julian's company is in deep trouble. Their cash flow has collapsed, and they're about to go bankrupt. If you replace him now, you'll be inheriting a mess and tens of millions in debt. I was gambling on the fact that he didn't know about Julian's problems. He hesitated, looking at me with sudden doubt. Are you lying to me? He asked. You can check for yourself, I replied, keeping my voice steady. He's been a wreck, pacing, taking calls in the study at all hours. Do you think he was calling just to chat? I laid out my case calmly, trying to plant a seed of doubt. Jaden's expression wavered. I knew my gamble was paying off. Just when I thought I could buy a little more time, his phone suddenly rang. He pulled it out, glanced at it, answered, and put it on speaker. A voice I knew all too well came through. Jaden, how's it going? Is she dead yet? My head buzzed as if something had exploded. Time froze. I stared at the name on Jaden's phone screen. Julian. Julian's voice was impatient over the speaker. Why aren't you saying anything? Have you done it? Don't forget what we agreed to. Once she's dead, that 10 million insurance payout is ours. Half for you, half for me. That'll cover the company's shortfall. Jaden hung up and forced a mocking smile. Elena, you hear that? Your perfect husband sent you to the grave for money. Not only did he know I was going to kill you, but this whole plan was his idea from the start. Something inside me shattered. It wasn't brothers at odds or a twisted desire to take over. It was the man I loved and trusted most, my husband, conspiring with his own brother for money, plotting to kill me and the child I carried. The news alert had been true. The killer was Julian. But he had used someone else's hand. No wonder Jaden always managed to show up right on time in every rebirth. No wonder he had a key and could slip into the house without the slightest effort. Julian had paved the way for him all along. The fifth time I came back, the sting of such a huge betrayal swallowed me whole. Tears fell without my control, and I trembled so badly I could barely stand. Why? I whispered. Why? Jaden's face went soft with pity and hard with cruelty at the same time. Because he loves you, Elena. He loved you so much he couldn't bring himself to do it. That's why he let me do it for him. So you could be freed. He stepped closer, the blade in his hand catching the light. Now you can leave in peace. Your death will save the husband you love. You should be happy about that, shouldn't you? I looked at him. The tears in my eyes dried, and my heart turned to ice. To hell with love. Even if I had to claw my way back from hell itself, I would. I would personally drag those two demons down. It was the fifth time I'd been reborn. I didn't cry or make a scene. I lay in bed and waited quietly for that familiar blade. My enemy was no longer just Jaden. It was both of them. Jaden and Julian. I was outnumbered. Trying to fight them head-on would be a death sentence. I needed a perfect plan, one that would make them turn on each other. Jaden arrived on schedule, and I didn't bother pretending anymore. Do it, I said. He paused for a heartbeat, surprised I'd seen through him, but his hand on the knife never wavered. The sixth time. The seventh time. The eighth time. I needed time to replay everything in my head, to examine it every detail. Julian's greed and paranoia, Jaden's temper and low self-worth. Their weaknesses were the only weapon I had. By the ninth time I was reborn, the plan had mostly taken shape in my mind. I wasn't going to lie down and die. Before Jaden came through the door, I used my phone to send an anonymous email to Julian's private account. The message was simple, just one line: be careful of your brother. He wants the money all to himself. Then I deleted the sent message. The whole move was smooth, like water. I started the phone's recorder and waited for Jaden to come in. He barely stepped through the door before I spoke. You're not Julian. I know you're Jaden. He blinked in surprise, then recovered. He sneered at me. So what if you know? You know I I know you and your brother plotted to kill me for that 10 million payout, I said. Panic hit him. He lunged forward, trying to strangle me, but before he reached me, I lifted my phone so he could see I was recording. Jaden went pale. He ripped the phone from my hand and crushed it under his boot. That won't help, I said calmly. I already set the recording to send on a timer. If I don't cancel it within 3 hours, that audio will automatically go to my best friend's email. Then she'll take it to the police. Which of you do you think can avoid being summoned by them? I watched his throat bob. I know you wanted to replace your brother, to pin this on him, I continued. But guess what I might have said at the start of the recording? Or what I might have sent Julian separately. Once he knows you had selfish plans, do you think he'll still keep you? I let out a small, bitter laugh. I doubt your fate will be much better than mine. Jaden's breath caught. He stared at me, and for the first time there was something else in his eyes. Fear. He wasn't afraid of the police. He was afraid of Julian. He trembled with rage and raised the knife. Then kill me, I said, closing my eyes. Kill me. Let it all blow apart. Neither of you will get away. The knife hovered above my head and did not fall. The blade trembled, catching the light off Jaden's sweat-slicked forehead. For a long minute he just stared, rage warring with terror in his eyes. I could see the wheels turning, my words digging into the fragile trust between him and Julian. They weren't brothers in that moment. They were accomplices, bound by greed. And greed was a thread that snapped easily. Finally, he lowered the blade. You're lying, he snarled, but his voice lacked conviction. Julian wouldn't betray me. We had a deal. Did you? I said, opening my eyes, my voice cold and steady. A deal where he gets to play the grieving husband while you do the dirty work? Where he walks away with half the money and a clean conscience, and you're left holding the knife, literally? What makes you think he won't throw you under the bus the second things go wrong? I leaned forward, ignoring the ache in my swollen belly. Think about it, Jaden. Julian's been lying to you your whole life. He got the childhood you deserved, the success, the wife. Now he's using you again, making you do this for him. And when the police start asking questions, who do you think he'll point to? The crazy jealous twin who's always hated him, or himself? Jaden's jaw tightened. I could see the doubt festering, eating away at his resolve. He'd spent his life in Julian's shadow, craving recognition, craving a piece of what his brother had. The idea that Julian was using him again was a wound too deep to ignore. He promised me, Jaden muttered, more to himself than to me. He said we'd split everything. Start fresh. Promises are cheap, I said. Especially from men like Julian. He's already got one foot out the door. As soon as I'm dead, he'll call the police, cry about how you broke into the house, how you've always been unstable. He'll get the insurance money, and you'll get a cell. Or worse. He'll make sure you never talk. Jaden stepped back, the knife clattering to the floor. He stumbled to the chair by the vanity, burying his face in his hands. I watched him, my heart pounding. It was working. The seed of distrust had been planted. Now I just needed to water it. I slowly pushed myself up, wincing as my back screamed in protest. You want to know the truth? I said quietly. Julian's company isn't just in trouble. It's bankrupt. The insurance money isn't to cover a shortfall. It's his escape plan. He's got a bag packed, a ticket to Mexico. As soon as I'm dead, he's gone. And you'll be the one facing the consequences for killing a pregnant woman. Jaden's head snapped up. Proof, he demanded. Show me proof, or I'll finish what I started. I nodded, reaching for the nightstand drawer. Earlier, during one of my loops, I'd found Julian's hidden safe key tucked behind his watch box. I'd memorized the combination, our wedding date, and retrieved its contents, a plane ticket, a stack of cash, and a handwritten list of offshore bank accounts. I'd hidden the evidence in the false bottom of my jewelry box, knowing I'd need it. I pulled out the ticket and tossed it to him. Departure time, tomorrow morning. Non-refundable. He didn't even bother to book a seat for you. Jaden stared at the ticket, his face draining of color. The date glared back at him, exactly the day the news alert had said I would die. Julian had planned every detail right down to his escape. He's going to leave me, Jaden whispered. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. The truth was written all over his face. He stood up suddenly, his eyes blazing with a new kind of rage, this one directed not at me, but at Julian. That bastard, he growled. That lying bastard. He paced the room, muttering under his breath. His hands balled into fists. I stayed on the bed, watching, waiting. I needed him angry. Angry enough to turn on Julian. Angry enough to be useful. We need to stop him, Jaden said finally, turning to me. We need to make him pay. I raised an eyebrow. We? He nodded, his jaw set. You're right. He's been using both of us. But if we work together, we can take him down. We can get the money and make sure he pays for what he did. I studied him, weighing my options. Jaden was dangerous, unstable, violent. But he was also desperate. And desperate men were useful. For now, I said slowly, fine. But we do it my way. No more knives. No more killing. We're going to expose him. Make him confess. Then we call the police. Jaden hesitated. And the money? I met his eyes. First, we survive, I said. Then we make sure he loses everything. Inside me, something steady and cold settled into place. For the first time since this nightmare began, I looked at Jaden and didn't just see a monster. I saw a weapon. Not my savior. Not my ally. A blade I could turn in a different direction. Fine, I said. We do it my way. His fingers tightened around the knife again, as if he didn't know what to do with his hands without it. And what's your way, Elena? You want Julian to pay, I said. I want him ruined. Not just hurt. Not just scared. Ruined. The difference is, you think that happens with blood. I know it happens with evidence. His jaw twitched. Evidence doesn't scare him. Jail doesn't scare him. You know what scares him? What? Losing control of the story, Jaden said quietly. He cares more about his image than breathing. My mind flashed back to the news alert. Wife killed in suburban murder case. The way the headline had framed me. The way my face had been blurred out like I was already a corpse, a prop in his tragedy. Losing control of the story. Then we take that away from him, I said. We flip it. I picked up my phone, my fingers moving on instinct. I opened the news alert again. The article was still scheduled for tomorrow. Same headline. Same blurred wedding photo. But now I focused on the tiny gray line under the title. By Melissa Grant. A local crime reporter. I'd seen her name before, buried at the bottom of Julian's rants about biased media when some competitor's scandal went viral. This time, I tapped her name. It pulled up her author page. Dozens of crime pieces. Domestic disputes. Insurance fraud. Small-town tragedies turned public spectacle. I didn't understand how I was seeing an article that hadn't happened yet. I still didn't know why time kept snapping back like a rubber band around my death. But it didn't matter. If Julian cared about the story, then this woman was part of the trap. I took a screenshot of the alert and the author page, then emailed both to myself. It was a useless habit in other timelines, everything reset when my heart stopped, but it steadied me. It made this version of time feel tangible. Jaden watched me closely. Who are you emailing? No one you need to worry about, I said. Here's what you do need to do. Call Julian. His mouth curled. And tell him what? That I changed my mind and want to cuddle your corpse together? Tell him there's a problem, I said. Tell him I fought back. Tell him you don't want to be the only one with blood on your hands. Make him come here in person. Make him talk. He'll say more to you than he ever will to me. He won't come if he smells a trap, Jaden muttered. He thinks you're weaker than him, I said. He'll come to manage you. He always has, hasn't he? The silence that followed was answer enough. And Jaden? I added. You don't touch me again. Not with a knife. Not with anything. If I die before he gets here, you lose your leverage. You'll just be a man standing over a body. His eyes flicked to my belly. For a moment, something like shame crossed his face. Fine, he said hoarsely. You live until he gets here. How generous, I murmured. He took out his phone. I stepped aside, listening, feeling the baby shift inside me as if sensing the storm gathering. Julian, Jaden said when the call connected. His tone dropped into something almost casual. We need to talk. In person. I couldn't hear Julian's response, but I could imagine it, cool, annoyed, the way he'd sounded on the phone when I'd begged him not to come home and to call the police instead. I changed my mind, Jaden said. About everything. I'm not going to be left holding the knife while you run off with all the money. You want this done the way you planned, you come here and finish it. Or we both walk away. My throat tightened. He paused, then smiled without humor. Sure. Call it a crisis of conscience if that helps you sleep. Just get over here. You know the address. He hung up and met my eyes. He's coming, Jaden said. He doesn't trust me. Good. We can use that. My heart fluttered like it wanted to leap out of my chest and run. I moved through the house, every step pulled from memories of 8 previous deaths. I knew where he'd cornered me, where I'd slipped, where the carpet was uneven, where the light from the kitchen cast the worst shadows. I knew how long it took him to get from the front door to the bedroom, exactly how many seconds I had between his first shout and the swing of that knife. This time, I wasn't going to let everything happen in the dark. In the hallway, I palmed Julian's safe key from behind the watch box and opened the hidden compartment in the closet, just like I had in an earlier loop when I'd died 20 minutes afterward. The plane ticket, the emergency cash, the scribbled list of accounts, even a flash drive with his company logo, all of it went into a tote bag I slung over my shoulder. In the living room, I nudged the couch a few inches with my hip, remembering the way I'd stumbled against it before. I unplugged a lamp so it couldn't be knocked over and start an accidental fire. I cracked the sliding glass door just enough that a neighbor might hear if I screamed. I activated the emergency SOS setting on my phone, but this time I didn't just trust the button. I set a timed emergency call. If I didn't cancel it within 40 minutes, it would automatically dial 911 and broadcast my location in a recorded message. No details. No how-to. Just a ticking clock running parallel to my heartbeat. Jaden watched all of this with a frown. You sure you weren't the one born first? He muttered. You plan like him. I planned better than him, I said. He never factored me in. I tucked my phone behind a row of books on the shelf, camera lens pointing toward the center of the room. Then I opened a cloud backup app and hit record, video and audio both. If time snapped again, none of it would matter. But if, for some reason, it didn't, if this was the last iteration, then the footage might be the only thing that would keep my story from being twisted into someone else's headline. The minutes crawled. Every creak of the house made my skin prickle. My belly tightened in uncomfortable waves. The baby pressed outward, as if trying to carve out more space for itself. I rested a hand over the curve and whispered, just a little longer, okay? One more night. Headlights swept past the living room window. Jaden stiffened. He's here. I heard the familiar sound of Julian's car engine shutting off, the click of the remote locking, his footsteps coming up the path. My mouth went dry. Remember, I whispered, you want him talking, not swinging. He trusts you more than he trusts me. Use that. Jaden's expression hardened. For a second, the brothers looked alike again, same jawline, same eyes, same shadow of tension between their brows. Then he walked to the door and opened it. Julian stepped in, bringing the cool night air with him. For one surreal heartbeat, he was just my husband coming home late from work, tie loosened, sleeves rolled up, the faint smell of his cologne wrapping around me. Elena? He called. Honey? His gaze found me in the living room. His face softened into that familiar, practiced warmth. There you are, he said. You're still up. Didn't I tell you not to wait? My stomach churned. I held his eyes and said nothing. Behind him, Jaden closed the door with a quiet click. Julian glanced at his brother, irritation crossing his face like a shadow. You dragged me away from an emergency board call, Jaden, he said. This better be important. Oh, it's important, Jaden said. You didn't tell me your wife was difficult. I flinched. Julian's eyes flicked between us, adjusting. What did you do? He asked Jaden, his voice dropping. You didn't make a mess already, did you? So casual. So entitled. As if we were discussing a stain on the carpet and not my life. Jaden shrugged one shoulder. She's still breathing. For now. But I realized something. When this all blows up, I'll be the one holding the knife. And your name will be on the check. Julian exhaled sharply. We already discussed this. Discuss it again, Jaden said. Because I'm not going to prison while you play the grieving husband on television. Julian cut his eyes at me, then back at him. I told you, you won't be alone in this. The police will never suspect you if we stick to the script. You were out of town. You have an alibi. I'll tell them you were devastated. You loved her like a sister. I felt bile rise in my throat. Loved her like a sister. I saw the knife in Jaden's hand twitch. And what about now? Jaden asked softly. What's the script for tonight, exactly? Walk me through it again. I could almost hear the gears turning in Julian's mind. He was suspicious. But he was also arrogant. The story, Julian said slowly, is that my wife became distant during her pregnancy. She pushed me away. I was worried. I confided in some people about it. I asked a reporter I know whether similar cases had ended badly. Melissa Grant. Crime reporter. The byline under my blurred-out face. And then, Julian continued, I came home late one night to find her on the floor. Blood everywhere. Knife on the ground. A tragic, senseless accident. Maybe she was upset. Maybe she overreacted. Maybe she thought I didn't love her anymore. His eyes found mine again, and for a split second, there was something like apology there. The apology of a man who sees himself as a victim of circumstance. My hands shook so badly I dug my nails into my palms to keep them still. That doesn't sound like 10 million, Jaden said, his voice flat. That sounds like suicide. Insurance doesn't pay for that, remember? You made me read the policy twice. Julian's lips thinned. Fine. Then maybe it's a home invasion gone wrong. Maybe some unstable relative tried to force himself on her and she refused. Maybe an argument turned violent. He didn't look at me when he said it. He didn't need to. My skin went cold. There it was. The narrative he'd been hinting at for weeks. The one he'd already fed into some reporter's thirsty email inbox. The reason the article headline had framed me like a stubborn, ungrateful wife whose refusal had brought her own death. And what happens to me in that story? Jaden asked. Julian met his eyes for the first time without the usual layer of patient superiority. You're unstable, he said simply. Everyone knows it. You've always resented me. If things go wrong, we say you snapped. I tried to help you, but you lost control. The jury will latch onto that. They always do. There'll be sympathy. Maybe even a good defense. Jaden went stiff. There it was, laid out bare. You really are something, Jaden whispered. That's the cost of being in this with me, Julian said. You wanted out of that dead-end countryside. You wanted a share of what I built. This is how you earn it. He took a step closer, lowering his voice. The insurance pays out. We clean up. We get ahead of the story. Melissa will run the piece exactly the way we spin it. You'll lay low for a while. In a few years, this will be a tragic story people vaguely remember when they see me speaking about domestic violence at charity galas. That's the plan? My heart hammered against my ribs so loud I was sure he could hear it. The baby kicked, hard, as if in protest. And what if I don't want to be your monster anymore? Jaden asked. Julian's eyes hardened. Then you're just my problem, he said. He reached for the knife. I moved before I could think. My hand shot out and wrapped around Jaden's wrist. Jaden froze, shocked that I'd stopped him. Julian's gaze snapped to me. Elena, he said. What are you doing? What I should have done the first time I saw that article, I said, my voice shaking. Changing the story. I jerked my chin toward the bookshelf. Smile for the camera, Julian. You've always wanted an audience. His eyes followed my gesture. They landed on the faint red light of my recording phone, blinking between two hardback spines. For a second, his face was naked. Not gentle. Not charming. just terrified. He lunged toward the shelf. Jaden moved on instinct fast enough to surprise us both. He swung his arm, sending the knife skidding under the coffee table instead of into Julian's hand. The two brothers collided, grappling, shoving each other into the couch, bodies straining in almost mirror image movements. For a surreal moment, it was like watching someone fight his own reflection. "Idiot," Julian snarled. "She's playing you. Like you haven't been my whole life?" Jaden spat back. They crashed into the side table. The lamp I'd unplugged fell harmlessly to the carpet. The emergency timer on my phone ticked silently down somewhere in the background, an invisible metronome beating out the seconds before my life either ended or changed. Pain shot through my lower back. I staggered, clutching my stomach. "Stop it," I gasped. "Both of you, stop." They didn't hear me. Julian managed to shove Jaden hard enough to send him stumbling. In the split second that opened, Julian dropped low, reaching under the coffee table. His fingers closed around the knife. He whirled and drove forward. "Julian, don't!" I screamed. He hesitated just long enough for the blade to veer. Instead of going straight for his brother's throat, it sliced across Jaden's upper arm. Jaden let out a choked cry and grabbed the wound, staggering back. Julian didn't follow. He turned toward me. "Elena," he said, breathing hard. "Listen to me. He's dangerous. He's been obsessed with you from the start. I only brought him in because I was afraid of what he'd do on his own. You don't understand what he's capable of." I stared at him. "You're right," I said. I didn't understand what he was capable of. Or you. Siren wails floated faintly through the night. Julian heard it too. His head snapped toward the cracked sliding door. His eyes widened. "What did you do?" "My job," I said. "I called for help." Panic flickered in his gaze. He grabbed my wrist hard enough to make me wince. "You're my wife," he hissed. "You're carrying my child. You're not going to throw everything away because you're hormonal and scared. You will tell them Jaden broke in? That he threatened you? That I saved you?" His fingers dug in deeper. His voice dropped to a deadly whisper. "You owe me that, Elena. After everything I've done for you. For us." My heart stuttered. There it was. The old script. The one I'd lived under for years without ever reading the stage notes. "You owe me. You owe me for the roof, the lifestyle, the security. You owe me your silence while I gamble with your life." I looked at him. Really looked at him. I saw the man who had held my hair when I threw up in the first trimester. The man who had massaged my swollen feet after long days. The man who had pressed his palm to my belly and whispered to our baby about all the places we would go together. And I saw the man who had bought a plane ticket for the day after my death. The man who had rehearsed my obituary with a crime reporter. The man who hadn't even had the stomach to kill me himself, so he'd handed the knife to his brother. I thought of all the times I had cried quietly in the dark rather than ask for more, because I didn't want to be ungrateful. Because I believed I owed him happiness. The sirens drew closer. Tires crunched on the gravel outside. Voices called to each other. My wrist throbbed where he held it. The knife was still in his other hand. This was the pivot. Not the loops. Not the rebirths. Not the news alert. This. I could have done what he wanted. I could have cried and pointed at Jaden, let them drag him away, let Julian hold me as I sobbed in front of the cameras. We could have buried the evidence, the ticket, the emails. We could have moved to some new city where no one knew our names and tried to pretend. The baby shifted, pressing into my ribs so hard it hurt. I thought of my child growing up in a house where truth bent around someone else's fear. Where love meant silence and death and always being one step away from a story you didn't write. "No," I said. The word came out small. But it was solid. Julian's brow furrowed. "What?" "No," I repeated, louder. "I don't owe you my life. I don't owe you my death either." I twisted my wrist sharply, wrenching myself free. The motion sent a bolt of pain through my belly, but I didn't care. I staggered back toward the sliding door. Outside, flashlights flooded the porch. "Help," I shouted, my voice breaking. "They're both armed." They tried to kill me for the insurance money. For a split second, Julian just stared at me, stunned that I'd said it out loud where someone else could hear. Then everything erupted at once. The front door burst open. Police poured in, guns raised, shouting commands. Julian dropped the knife like it burned him and threw his hands up, his mouth already forming a frantic explanation. "She's hysterical," he shouted. "She's 9 months pregnant, she's not well, my brother." Jaden, white-faced and bleeding, started laughing. It sounded half mad, half relieved. "You should hear what he thinks I'm good for, officers," he called out. He had a whole speech rehearsed. Someone ordered him to get on the ground. He obeyed, still laughing. A female officer approached me carefully, her hands open. "Ma'am? Are you hurt? Is the baby okay?" My legs shook. I clutched my stomach and felt another wave tighten deep inside, heavier than anything I'd felt before. I don't know," I whispered. "But I have evidence. Check the safe in the hallway closet. There's a ticket. Account numbers." He called his brother earlier and discussed the whole plan on speaker. My phone recorded them. The news site. There's an article scheduled for tomorrow. It already has my wedding photo in it. The words tumbled out, messy and breathless, but they were real. Not rehearsed. Not polished into some palatable tragedy. Real. The officer's eyes sharpened. She guided me to the couch, shouting for someone to get paramedics. Another officer went to check the closet. One of them picked up my phone from the shelf, still recording, the cloud icon spinning in the corner. As they handcuffed Julian and Jaden, their voices rose in overlapping protests and accusations. "She's lying. He was going to leave me. She planned this. He said I was the crazy one." For once, it didn't matter which of them talked louder. Their story wasn't the only one in the room anymore. The contractions came hard and fast after that. The paramedics loaded me into the ambulance while I tried to answer detectives' questions between waves of pain. Somewhere in the chaos, I saw the news alert flash across my phone one last time before the screen went dark. "Wife killed in suburban murder case." The headline blinked, then vanished as the phone lost signal and rebooted. When I woke up again, it wasn't in my bed. It was under harsh hospital lights, sweat drying on my skin, every muscle aching like I'd been turned inside out. "Congratulations," a voice said gently near my ear. "You've got a healthy baby boy." I turned my head, disoriented. A nurse held a tiny bundle wrapped in a striped blanket. A shock of dark hair peeked out from under the cap. My chest clenched. "Can I?" My voice cracked. She smiled and placed him in my arms. He was so small. So impossibly real. His little face scrunched up, his mouth opening in a silent protest at being moved. When I touched his cheek with the back of my finger, he calmed, eyes squeezed shut, breath warm against my wrist. Something inside me loosened. We had made it past midnight. Past the article. Past the knife. The world hadn't snapped back. Where? My throat felt raw. Where is Julian? The nurse's smile faded a little. "There are officers outside," she said carefully. "They've been waiting for you to wake up. You don't have to talk to them right away if you don't want to. But your husband and his brother, they're in custody." There was a lot of evidence. Evidence. The safe. The recording. The plane ticket. The scheduled news article that Melissa Grant later said she'd been asked to prepare just in case, because Julian had a bad feeling at home. The email trail showing he'd pitched the story himself, painting himself as a worried husband trapped in a volatile marriage. And Jaden. He broke faster than anyone expected. Maybe it was the cut on his arm. Maybe it was the realization that Julian really had planned to leave him behind, ticket booked for one. Maybe it was the first time in his life that anyone looked at him not as a shadow, but as a person who could decide to step out of it. Whatever the reason, he talked. He told them everything. The late-night calls. The promise to split the insurance payout. The rehearsed lines. The way Julian had coached him on what to say if he got caught. He also said something I didn't expect. The article was my idea at first, he told the detectives, according to the report I later read. I suggested leaking it early if he ever tried to screw me over. Thought if the whole town saw his name in a headline like that, it'd ruin him no matter what happened. I mentioned a reporter he could talk to. I didn't think he'd actually do it. A shiver ran through me when I imagined that conversation. Two brothers, each plotting to use the other as a shield, both underestimating how messy stories get once they leave your mouth. So maybe the article hadn't been prophecy. Maybe it had just been a loaded gun lying around, waiting for someone to trip over it. But the loops. The rebirths. The way time had folded around my death and spat me back out? No one had an explanation for that. Doctors chalked the gaps in my memory up to trauma. The blurred boundaries between dream and reality. They said it wasn't uncommon for the brain to distort time under extreme stress. I nodded along. Let them think I'd imagined it. I knew what I had felt when the knife went in. When the world turned black. When the clock rewound 10 minutes and left me gasping in the dark, palms still slick with phantom blood. I didn't know if it was the baby. God. Fate. A glitch in a server that handled push notifications and human souls at the same time. All I knew was that I'd been given more chances than anyone deserved. And I had finally used one of them to tell the truth out loud. Weeks later, I sat in the back of the courtroom with my son asleep against my chest while Julian Lawson took the stand. He didn't look like the man from the article anymore. He wasn't the tragic, handsome widower with the blurred-out wife. He was just a tired man in an ill-fitting suit, hands trembling as audio of his own voice played for the jury. Once she's dead, that $10 million insurance payout is ours. Half for you, half for me. The jurors watched him the way people watch car crashes on the highway. Horrified. Fascinated. Unable to look away. When it was my turn to speak, I walked to the front with my knees shaking so hard I could hear them knock in my own ears. The prosecutor asked me if I wanted to read from a prepared statement. I shook my head. I've had enough of scripted stories, I said quietly. I talked about the article without mentioning time loops. I talked about seeing my husband's name under a headline that turned me into a faceless dead woman. I talked about the safe, the ticket, the policy I'd been pressured into signing. I talked about sitting on our living room floor while two brothers argued over who would get to wear my husband's skin in front of the cameras. And I talked about my son. I don't want him growing up thinking love is something you owe in installments, I said, my voice shaking. I don't want him learning that silence keeps you safe. I want him to know that his life doesn't belong to anyone else's narrative. Not even mine. When I stepped down, Julian didn't look at me. He stared straight ahead, jaw clenched, as the judge announced the verdict weeks later. Guilty. Conspiracy to commit murder. Attempted murder of a pregnant woman. Insurance fraud. A stack of charges tall enough to climb. Jaden's sentence was lighter. Cooperation. A plea deal. Years behind bars instead of decades. When he turned once in the courtroom and met my eyes, there was no smugness left. No obsession. Just a hollow apology I didn't know what to do with. I didn't forgive him. But I didn't hate him the way I had before either. He had been the knife. Julian had been the hand. They both still cut me open. Months passed. One morning, as the baby dozed in his second-hand bouncer beside the kitchen table, my phone buzzed with a local news alert. For a second, my heart leapt into my throat. I picked it up with shaking fingers. Local woman escapes alleged murder plot, helps bring down insurance fraud scheme. My own wedding photo sat under the headline, this time without the blur. My face was sharp, eyes bright with a happiness that ached to look at. Next to it, a recent picture of me on the courthouse steps, hair pulled back, baby in my arms, dark circles under my eyes, but standing. By Melissa Grant. I read the article once. Twice. The details were messy, as they always are when strangers tell your story. They got some things wrong. But not everything. Enough of the truth had made it through. At the bottom, there was a line about victims of domestic violence. A hotline number. A reminder that stories don't have to end in headlines written by someone else. The baby stirred and let out a soft, protesting sound. I scooped him up, pressing my lips to his forehead. We're not a cautionary tale, I whispered into his hair. We're a prologue. Outside, The world moved forward in small, ordinary ways. A car door slammed. A dog barked. Somewhere, a delivery truck rattled past, carrying someone else's future on its back. For the first time in what felt like forever, time didn't bend or snap. It simply flowed. I didn't know where we'd go next. Maybe I'd sell the house and move closer to my parents. Maybe I'd start over in a town where no one recognized my last name. Maybe I'd send Melissa an email and ask her how it felt to write about other people's lives all day. But I knew one thing with absolute clarity. Whatever story came next, I was going to write it myself.